Yeah, definitely getting this video up really late for you guys. Long story short, I was having some issues with my laptop that needed to be fixed. So that's why I couldn't get this video uploaded last week. But hopefully, now you've all had the time to see Blade Runner 2049. Now we can talk about it. So Blade Runner 2049 is the long-awaited sequel to Blade Runner. And to my everlasting shame, I have never seen the original Blade Runner. I had every intent of seeing the original Blade Runner before I saw Blade Runner 2049. I checked a few stores for the Blu-ray, but they didn't have it. And I, like an idiot, decided for whatever reason not to check Amazon. So I went into Blade Runner 2049 really having absolutely no idea what to expect. But that was part of the fun, because I'd never really seen Blade Runner, didn't really know a whole lot about the world. I got to go into Blade Runner 2049 very excited because I had no idea what to expect. It's kind of what I feel like a lot of younger kids may have felt when they went in to see Force Awakens for the first time. So this movie takes place, as the title suggests, in the year 2049. And in 2049, the world is run by replicants, who are these bioengineered humans that are simply created to serve as servants and slaves and officers, whatever it might be. One of these replicants is known as K. He's played by Ryan Gosling, and he's a Blade Runner. Blade Runners are basically a futuristic version of cops. Their goal is to hunt down and retire the older model of replicant. I'll just say this right now, Ryan Gosling was great in this movie. I loved his attitude, I loved his kind of stoic personality, I love how he's someone who just wants to get done what he needs to get done. He's quite the badass too. The opening scene, he finds one of the older models that he has to retire, and he does it by essentially beating the guy to shit. That's also something I like seeing, in a way that these replicants are basically superhumans. And it's not just with the replicants, I really did love seeing the world that exists in the Blade Runner universe. I mean, everything is, of course, completely futuristic. It's amazing seeing how the world is run. Hell, Kay has a really hot hologram girlfriend that runs his home, whom he apparently can't have sex with unless he hires this hooker to stand in place for her. Apparently that's what the future holds for us people. But along the way, Kay has done a little bit more digging, and he has discovered the remains of a female body that was apparently pregnant. And this is a very big deal, because the world at this point is almost entirely run by replicants, and replicants aren't able to produce children. And once word gets around that there's a chance that a replicant was actually able to give birth, everyone starts going a little nuts. On one side, you have the LAPD, which specifically tells Kay, do not let this get word to anyone, especially not replicants out there, because those who use their slaves are gonna start a fucking revolution, and that's gonna be bad for everybody. And then on the other side, we have Jared Leto. He's basically the head of this corporation that's in charge of creating the replicants. And once he discovers that there was a pregnant woman's body found and the child may be alive, he sends his own little squadron to go out to do a little bit of investigating of their own, because he thinks this might help him in his own evil schemes in the long run. And this was something the movie really surprised me with. I was kind of expecting it to be sort of a sci-fi action movie, you know, kind of like what we're used to seeing in these kind of movies. No, this movie is a straight up crime investigation thriller, and it works really well. Denis Villeneuve, I may be butchering that, but he just knows how to make some original sci-fi movies. Even though this movie's technically not original, it's a sequel, but still counts. It's pretty original. So now Kay continues his investigation and figuring out who the child was, and one little clue that he finds is this little childhood memory that goes back to this little boy who's playing with a toy horse. But as he digs more into that clue, he recalls a memory that he had when he was in an orphanage playing with a toy wooden horse. But in the case with replicants, these memories are technically implanted into them so they can function pretty much as humans. But now it's causing him to wonder if this memory that he's having is a real one, which, if it is, could very well mean that he is the child that was given birth to by this dead woman, which makes the movie so much more enticing in the fact that not only is Ryan Gosling doing more investigation to learn more about this replicant that gave birth, but it's him trying to truly figure out if he's in fact the child that was given birth to. So Kay now meets up with this girl named Anna Stelline. She's one of these doctors that's in charge of creating the memories for the replicants. It was really cool seeing her in this little bubble room, like using like these very futuristic cameras to actually create memories that are going to get put into replicants. It's just, again, it's nice seeing this world expand into what it is. But it's in this moment she tells Ryan Gosling, it's like, yeah, I'm not allowed to give you any real memories. The memories that I create are all artificial. Now at this point, Kay is really starting to lean towards, you know what, maybe I am this dead woman's son. I need to go find Rick Deckard. Rick Deckard, for those of you who don't know, is the main character of the original Blade Runner movie. He's the guy who was played by Harrison Ford. And he needs to find Rick Deckard because he discovers that this dead woman that potentially gave birth to him, her name was Rachel, and she was a former lover of Rick Deckard. So Kay tracks Deckard in the ruins of what appear to be Las Vegas, and this is really cool. I mean, for a while, it's Deckard and Kay just throwing down with each other throughout Deckard's hidings. But at one point, the two of them are just able to sit down, talk about the investigation, you know, learn a little bit more about who Rachel was, what this all could mean. It's, in a way, seeing Millennial and Gen X Blade Runners talk to each other. It makes for some really good dialogue. Harrison Ford, it's really cool seeing him in these type of movies because you know this is what he thrives in. I mean, sure, he was Indiana Jones, but we all know him as Han Solo and as Rick Deckard, so it's really cool seeing him once again take on a role that he's so familiar with. It works out here, it worked out in Star Wars The Force Awakens, didn't really work out in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but let's just continue to pretend that didn't happen. But now at this point, Jared Leto's squad, they show up, they beat the shit out of Kay, and they take away Deckard to bring him to Jared Leto so he can get a little bit more information out of him. Kay is later then rescued by this army of replicants who are preparing for this revolution in light of this big news. But it's right here in this moment, the leader of this revolution, she tells Kay that Rachel's child, it wasn't a son, it was a daughter, so it can't be Kay now. I think the movie does that. It has you thinking for a while. It's like, oh, maybe Kay is in fact Rick Deckard's child, and that's like, nope, not exactly. Let's take a turn. Let us tell you the story. So the revolution, they tells Kay, it's like, this information cannot be brought out there. They think it's you. It needs to stay that way. If they find out who the actual child is, it's gonna be terrible. You can't let them get that information. If you have to kill Rick Deckard to keep that secret, you kill him. So now Jared Leto has Rick Deckard, but Rick Deckard is not gonna spill any beans, so Jared Leto's like, alright, send him away to be tortured. Then we'll see if he wants to talk. But then Kay shows up and he does battle with one of Jared Leto's lieutenants. He's fighting her to try to save Rick Deckard. It's an intense scene when it happens, because they're in this ship, and this ship is sinking in water, so eventually, someone's gonna die. It's an inevitability at this point. After a really intense fight, Kay is able to kill Jared Leto's lieutenant, and because the ship sinks, he's able to stage it like Rick Deckard just drowned, that he's dead, there's nothing more they can do. At the same time though, Kay is now very badly wounded from the fight. He's probably gonna die, but with that, he's like, before I succumb to my wounds, I need to take you to who your real child is. So he takes Rick Deckard to the memory chamber that he visited with that girl Anna earlier, because Kay has deduced the fact that Anna was able to put that memory into him, a real human memory. The fact that she has that ability, she has to be human. She has to be a real human replicant child. And with that, Rick Deckard does in fact realize that Anna Stelline is indeed his daughter, and he goes into the chamber to talk to her. But before even a single word is said, the movie just ends. Although I would have liked to see a little bit more of the interaction, it did seem like a fitting ending. Like, let us decide what happens next. Unless they're gonna make a sequel, which I certainly could see happening, in which case, then they'll decide what happens next. So all in all, I will say, Blade Runner 2049 was a great movie. Everyone in this movie did a really good job. Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford, they in particular crushed it in this movie. You knew a lot was riding on them, and they really carried it in this movie. I was glad that Harrison Ford didn't feel shoehorned into this movie, which is hard for me to say because I haven't seen the original Blade Runner, but Harrison Ford's not in this movie for a lot. I feel like that helps. Ryan Gosling is the main star of this movie, and I feel like that really worked for it. I like Jared Leto as the menacing antagonist of this movie, although I will say Jared Leto's not in this movie for very much. He's really only in the movie for like 2 scenes. It's more of his presence that he exists in this movie that, makes him a bit more of a character in my opinion. But at the same time, I would have liked to see more of him. I mean, Jared Leto's a great actor. He's proven that on many occasions. Hell of a singer, too. 30 Seconds to Mars, one of my favorite bands. Point is, if he was in this movie a little bit more, I thought it could have made the movie even better. Visually, the movie is a spectacle. I mean, the effects are incredible. The set design is really awesome. The cinematography, it's fantastic. I mean, Denis Villeneuve, he just knows how to work a camera. I must say, though, the one other flaw I have, aside from Jared Leto not being a bigger part of this movie is very long. It is 3 hours long, and it feels 3 hours long. And that's not me saying that I have a problem with long movies. I seriously don't mind long movies at all, as long as they don't feel long. And this movie did feel long. Quick example, there are a few moments where the camera is just focused on various different angles of a character or scenery or whatever it might be. And you know, when it's focused on one little thing for that long and nothing's really happening, it kind of just has you sitting there like, okay, can we pick up the pace a little bit more? But in the end, Blade Runner 2049 was not at all what I was expecting. It was a very well made movie, and I'm definitely glad I saw it, and it definitely has me much more interested to finally seeing the original Blade Runner. I feel like if I watched the original Blade Runner, I would probably enjoy this movie even more than I already did. But don't let that stop you from seeing this movie, because I feel if you didn't see Blade Runner, you'll still really enjoy Blade Runner 2049. I know I did. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.